So my name is Tim Stachinsky, and I am the owner and founder of Bridge Coffee Company. And that is a journey that's taken a few years to happen. I talk with my hands a little bit. You'll get that throughout this conversation. So my love for coffee started, it was 1992. I had just started working on ambulances. It was before my 20th birthday, so 19 years old, and I'm working on ambulances. And the crews, we would sit around the table and share stories over a cup of coffee. It wasn't a very good cup of coffee. It was normal, average diner coffee. But I really fell in love with the fact that people got together and shared their life around a cup of coffee. And it had been like my first taste of coffee, and I'm like, this is tolerable. After about the 20th shift, it's like, well, I'm looking forward to that cup of coffee and sharing the stories and learning more about one another. Well, the early 90s, particularly in Northern California, in the rural community that I lived in, Starbucks was just starting to get known. And people were talking about specialty coffee, something that wasn't diner coffee. And I really enjoyed a mocha and a vanilla latte and those espresso-based drinks. And I thought, there's something more to coffee than just the cup that people share at the table. And I started to really kind of get into it. So 1993, I go back to college, and the school that I went to was Stanford University's paramedic program. I'm very fortunate that I got to go to Stanford for my education, and they happen to have this really great cafe. Not on campus, it was an independent that was off campus, and I can still remember to this day the walking into that cafe, the subway tiles that were on the back wall, and the line of people that were going up to the bar, the espresso machine, the barista, and the cup of coffee that they served me. I had never ordered a straight espresso before, and I wasn't expecting this tiny little cup. So they served me a single espresso, and in this tiny little Demitasse cup, and I was shocked at the flavor, that it tasted like, it was strong, but it was like chocolate and caramel and vanilla, and it had these notes of citrus, and it was bright, and the coffee wasn't roasty. It didn't taste like smoke. It didn't taste like anything bitter. It just was remarkable. So much so that I can still picture that cafe like it was yesterday. One long time ago. So I started thinking about, how do I make that cup of coffee? Well, espresso machines are expensive. But I saved my pennies. I mowed lawns. Actually, I built computers for friends and family and websites, and took my hobby cash and put it towards my obsessive hobby. And the grinder and the espresso machine and coffee beans that were from Starbucks, and trying to find other places, and I just couldn't get the cup that I remembered. So in 1997, I tried my hand at home roasting. And to get green coffee in 1997, there was this great company called Sweet Maria's. Sweet Maria's serves for home roasters. Well, they just happened to start in 1997 as well, and the Tom and Maria, they are obsessive about coffee, but also where it comes from. And the coffees that they were sending were from these unique and special places. It wasn't just a light roast or a medium roast or a dark roast. It was Sumatra and Ethiopia and Brazil, and each one of them had their own unique character. And I started to think about, well, I don't know how to roast. And I feel like I'm just creating a lot of smoke. I'm not getting the character. And I really became obsessive about it. And I was burning coffee in my oven. I was trying to roast coffee in my barbecue. I was cooking it on the stove with the pan. I found out a wok actually works really great. And actually that wok is a traditional way that goes back hundreds of years in Ethiopia for roasting coffee. And then popcorn poppers. An air popcorn popper is just this really quick but great way to roast a cup of coffee. And I was starting to get those flavors and notes and quality of coffee that I had experienced back in college. The amount of coffee that I was roasting grew and grew, and I had friends and family that knew that I was really obsessive about coffee, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I taste the difference. Is it light or medium or is it dark?" No, it's Sumatra. It's earthy and chocolatey and reminds you of walking through the forest. Oh, you're right. I do feel like I'm walking through the forest drinking a cup of coffee. Well, more and more people started asking me about my coffee that I was roasting, and could you make me a bag of coffee? People I didn't know started asking me, "Hey, I heard you roast coffee. Can I get some coffee?" So I remember in 2015 talking with Jennifer, my wife, about, hey, there's these people that are asking me if they could buy coffee from me that I'm roasting, and I have a handful of folks that I know that would regularly buy coffee. How would you feel about starting a coffee business? We can go to the farmer's market. We can maybe catch one of the grocery stores locally, maybe a restaurant or so. Well, in 2015, on August 15, just about 4 years ago, Bridge Coffee Company started. That's another image I can remember to this day, that conversation with Jennifer about starting Bridge Coffee Company. A very dear friend caught that image as well and gave us the money for seeding Bridge Coffee Company. What happened really shocked me. We were able to create a coffee club, and people were buying our coffee and subscribing to it, and we were delivering on a regular basis. The farmers market was a unique opportunity to talk about coffee. The grocery store started selling the coffee, and restaurants wanted to serve our coffee. Well, all that happened on a cottage food permit out of our garage in Yuba City, in the middle of a duplex subdivision with a dream. The first day that I spent 23 hours to roast 24 bags of 12-ounce coffee, I asked Jennifer, I think we need to go bigger. I'm gonna need to roast a little more coffee. I'm running out of hours in the day. So we started looking at the barbecue again, and they make these special attachments for roasting coffee. But again, I'm obsessively passionate about where that coffee comes from and the natural character that it is. And the barbecue roasters have a where they kind of lend a little smoky character, and it detracts from that initial quality. So we went and found the very best roaster manufacturer in the world and purchased a small 6-pound San Franciscan roaster, and using it in my garage in a duplex subdivision in Yuba City, California. Well, more and more folks wanted more and more of our coffee. And I had talked to the owners of Clark Avenue Coffee about leasing a space within their shop to move the roaster, and we would provide the coffee for their coffee shop and the customers that they were serving. And they said, hey, we see your passion and obsession, and what do you think about just buying the coffee shop and doing that on your own? That was a year later in 2016. On August 1st, we bought Clark Avenue Coffee. I did not know we were going to have so much fun working with the employees that came over with Clark Avenue and the customer experience. Because I saw what was happening at the farmers market and the customer reaction, and then taking care of people day after day. Some regulars that were there every day, and more and more people started to ask about our coffee. More and more restaurants started serving our coffee. More and more grocery stores started. I'm falling apart. I think it's gone. Can you continue to grind for me, please? Oh, is that gone too?
Yeah, we went through the tracks.
I'll be able to edit that out.
Take care of that.
More and more restaurants wanted to serve our coffee, and the other cafes wanted to serve our coffee. I wanted to help educate them on coffee. So right now, what it ends up happening is that our business was growing, and much like people who I didn't know were asking about, hey, I heard you roast coffee, I'd like to get some. Is that a possibility? More and more businesses, hey, you guys roast good coffee, we would like to serve it. And we knew that our businesses, Bridge Coffee Company's potential was much larger than a standalone shop. We experimented with the shop in Sacramento, not the greatest of locations to try and build a business around, but we learned that we could have a remote location where we served a great cup of coffee, had great customer experience, and the team could get taken care of, and I didn't have to be there day after day. I think what that all boiled down to is, how do we approach our business? Our business starts with love. I love what I do. This is such a joy for me. I want to treat people with dignity. I care about you and the customer. And I really respect the craft of coffee. What I'm doing right now is I'm preparing to brew a cup of coffee. I'm going to create fire. Ooh. So, this particular coffee comes from Sumatra. Sumatra is a classic specialty coffee. Sometimes it's the bridge for people who are only used to and interested in drinking diner coffee to specialty coffee because it's approachable. It's got a wonderful chocolatey character. It reminds you of great times that you might have spent with family. The fact that it has this mineral quality or peat moss note is comforting. It's warming. It also tastes good, roasted a little darker with a hint of smoky character. Much like salmon tastes great smoked, but also tastes great baked or straight up raw. That's the way I love it. When I started roasting coffee, and I knew that there was more than just light, medium, and dark, and there was country, Tom and Maria at Sweet Maria's also introduced us to the farmers and the people who grow coffee. The producers and pickers and the livelihoods that the coffee industry supports. Well, when I started Bridge Coffee Company, that farmer and that coffee drinker are both passionate about what they love. That person loves growing coffee, that person loves drinking coffee. And so Bridge connects passionate coffee producers with passionate coffee drinkers. And we get to share their story. This particular coffee, ground by hand with a ceramic burr at slow speeds, almost perfectly shaved, is going to be put into a device called a siphon brewer. A siphon brewer is one of the most unique ways of brewing coffee, and for some, this is the epitome of coffee extraction. To take something that was green, roasted to brown, ground, and put in water to dissolve it so that you can drink it is all coffee production is for. That's the journey of coffee. The I heard a story, or I heard an analogy that the coffee grinder is like a tuner on a guitar. You have a masterful musician and a beautiful Gibson guitar, and if it's out of tune, it's not going to sound all that great. Well, you might have the really beautiful coffee and a really remarkable way of brewing that coffee, and if it's not ground correctly, it's not going to taste correct. You're not going to get the most out of that coffee. My journey back to my thinking back to 1992, when I tasted that little cup of coffee, and it was chocolate and caramel and vanilla and citrusy. That opened my eyes to what coffee could be like. I didn't realize until I got into the coffee business, I have so little knowledge about coffee. I have so little awareness about producers. I have very little understanding of a coffee customer. I have my passion that I want to share, and I have so much to learn. And it's really, really exciting. This contraption, I'm not making methamphetamine, is just such a wonderful way of bringing out something that you may never have known was there. Well, that's what, to me, is how I feel about taking care of people. It's about my faith and how God takes care of me. How something can be brought out. Pose myself. Something that can be brought out that you didn't even know was there. What a beautiful thing, huh? So, believe it or not, this is just boiling water. The chain that's in there is reacting with the glass so that the boil is not explosive. The principles that are happening in here, this is a siphon brewer. It's not actually going to let me back up. I'm going to edit that and come back. A siphon brewer through heat is going to force the water into a chamber. The chamber is going to reach a particular temperature and it's going to stay there. One that happens to be really a stable, great temperature for brewing coffee, right around 202 degrees. After the heat's removed, not by gravity, but by true siphon with a seal, if I were to just let it sit there, it would never fall back in there under gravity. It will pull the coffee through the filter, the water through the filter, and leave the brewed coffee in the chamber. Right now, with the temperature changing within the bulb, it's going to rise up into the brew chamber and sit there waiting for me to add the coffee. I have to be careful because adding cold coffee to the chamber might disrupt it, and I've got to be cautious of that. So I want to make sure that the temperature stays stable, and add the coffee. I'm going to give it a little agitation. Fortunately, the water is 202 degrees. And in a minute and a half, with the agitation and higher temperature that this is, it'll be extracted enough for the coffee to be drank. If it starts to get a little ahead of me, I give it a little other agitation, helps to stabilize the temperature. Drinking coffee is no more than drinking dissolved solids from the coffee bean. It's 98.5% water. That 1.5% is what you're tasting. So a minute and a half passed, I can remove the heat and let it finish off a little bit of agitation that's happening, the little bit of steeping, and then within a 4-minute contact time, we're going to extract the amount of coffee that we were hoping to get from this particular coffee, roasted at a particular way, ground in a particular device, brewed in a particular vessel. It's 2019, 27 years after my first cup of coffee. The culmination of my passion and love into a cup of coffee is not complete. We have so much to look forward to. Bridge Coffee Company is growing. More and more folks are hearing about who we are and what we stand for. We have a responsibility to take care of the customer and take care of the producer. Again, I love what I do. I love who I get to do it with. And I love that I still have so much more to learn. Who wants a cup of coffee? Thank you, everybody. Ready to serve.